Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the Holistic Educator Academy podcast. I did take an unintended long break. I was unwell for most of May, and Alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful that I'm back here and I'm back on my feet. But it was just a challenging time for me. But I'm so grateful to be back on my feet. So for those of us who are young, energetic, who are healthy, let us take advantage of that. Take five before five, as the Prophet ﷺ told us about. Take advantage of five before five. So our health, our time, our youth. Let's take advantage of all that because, and be as much productive as possible. Because once that's taken away, we're gonna look back and we will be we will we will be looking back and we will be regretting that we didn't use our time properly. So let's utilize our time as much as possible to ensure that we can be able to be as productive as possible. So that takes us to today's episode. And our topic for today is self-management strategies for depression and anxiety using an Islamic perspective. And, this topic of depression is something that is shunned away a lot in our Muslim community. Like many other topics that we have, we have the same challenges as the rest of the communities who are non-Muslims, but many times for one reason or another we choose not to talk about these things because of the shame and because of the shame and guilt around it, and people shaming other people for the situation that they're in, and that makes even those ones who want to seek help are not seeking help because of that. So I want us to change this narrative. I want us to start talking about these difficult topics that we don't want to talk about as a Muslim community, because I feel it is actually damaging us by not talking about these things. When we don't talk about it, when we shove things under the carpet, things are just like building up and building up and building up, and that is what is actually leading to the downfall of our Muslim families, Muslim community as a whole. So let's talk about these things so that we can be able to start looking for solutions, because the beginning of solving a problem is first identifying what the problem is, and talking about it is identifying it and getting to accept that there's a problem, right? And once we get to that acceptance, that's one step to our healing. So let's be able to to have the bravery to talk about these things. And for those of us who are in that situation right now, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling you're anxious, please don't feel any shame to be able to seek out help. There's a lot of help out there. So please reach out so that you can be able to get the help that you need. So today's episode is about self-management strategies for when struggling with depression and anxiety. And nobody is immune to depression and anxiety. We have all at one point or another been able to go through depression and anxiety. You can't tell me you've lived in this world and you have never gone through some sort of sadness, depression, or anxiety. So let's normalize these things and let's talk about them. There are three key areas that we need to work on to be able to deal with depression and anxiety. First off is our thoughts. In this channel, we've talked a lot about, our thoughts creating our reality. We've talked about the famous hadith, hadith al-Qudsi, I am as my slave thinks of me. So how we think about Allah is how we will be, we will perceive life. So it's about working on our thoughts and what we're thinking all day long and changing our perspective. So that's the first one. I'm not going to focus too much on the thoughts bit today, because I believe we have, several episodes before this one that we've, focused on the thoughts. So I will leave you to be able to check on the other episodes, and I'll put the link down here so that you can be able to, listen to those previous episodes. Today, I'm going to focus on two other areas. The second area that we will be looking at is the activities. So the second area that we need to work on when we're struggling with depression and anxiety is our activities and our support system. We've also touched on the support system bit, but not as in-depth as I'd like to. So today we're gonna, discuss it a little bit more further. So first off, as I said, it's not something to shun away from. I myself have gone through depression. I had a season of my life where I was going through a lot of depression. I was having like a lot of changes in my life at that point, and there were so many things that were not working as I had hoped to. I'll give you an example. Particularly, it was around since I started doing my PhD. When I was doing my PhD, I did struggle a lot with depression because I had a timeline that I planned for this thing to be done and to work on and all this and that. But there were a lot of other things that were entangled with this project. It was not just, the project that I was working on, but it was the people management, which became really challenging for me. But Alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful looking back now, because that experience actually really helped me to be able to build the life skills that I needed, for the rest of my life. So I'm so grateful. But that time it was really tough, and there were moments when I was feeling, very low mood. I remember there was one time, it was about 2 years ago. It was in the winter, and it was actually on one of the holidays, on a Christmas day. So I woke up that morning, and I had planned on submitting my thesis in January the next year. But there was, as I mentioned, there was a lot of the people management and everything. And I told myself, I'm going to prove these people wrong, and I'm going to be able to do what I set myself to. And I started doing that. So on the other hand, the people told me that, okay, show us that you can do it. So I was in so much low mood, because when I was working on it, looking at, because if for anyone who's gone through the PhD process, you would understand what I'm talking about. But for someone who hasn't gone through the PhD process, just to be able to give you a little bit more understanding of what I'm talking about, is with the PhD process, it's not like any other academic degree that you work towards. So like you're given assignments, and then you do the assignment once and that's it, and it's a done deal. No, there are no lectures. A PhD is a project you're working on, and you're writing and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting, and it never ends. And for most of academia, that's what it is. And what the PhD is about, it's training you for that process of academia. Because when you see a journal article or a book or a book chapter that's been written by an academic or any other person, to be honest, any when it comes to writing, even the writers, I think, go through the same challenges or similar challenges to this. Is the output that you get to see, that book that is presented to you, it's not the first draft that comes to you, if you get what I mean. So it's a series of the author writing and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting, and that's what, you know, the process is about. So that's what the process of the PhD is, but more so what makes it, you know, what brings in that bit of, you know, someone feeling depressed is every time, you know, you've improved on something, you're feeling good about it, you're, you know, you're tapping on your shoulders and, you know, trying, you know, your best to be able to move forward, and then you send it off to, you know, people who are supporting you so that you can be able to do this project, because there's a whole team of people who will be supporting you through this process. Then it comes back with comments, and, you know, the comments are just dampening. That's how I can say it in that way. So, you know, when you get such comments, you get to that point sometimes, and especially like in the last years of the PhD, because for me, that was my final year. So the last years, so if you're in your third or your fourth year, or sometimes your fifth year, and then you get to that point whereby you start having those, you know, negative thoughts of what's the point, you know, and you know, you spiral through that back and forth. But if you do not learn how to cope and how to be able to build a thick skin, obviously the whole process has been training you to build that thick skin, but sometimes we're all human, you know, we go through the experiences, and, you know, it can become very painful and stuff. So, and especially if you have other things in your life going on, it can, you know, it can have a huge impact. So for me, I had a lot of other things in my personal life that were, you know, that were going on at that time. Yeah, I just found myself feeling very depressed, and just yeah, just wondering what I'll do. But I did not stop there. I did not, you know, go down the spiral of telling myself all the time that what's the point, you shouldn't even try, and all this and that. I I literally told myself, if you don't pick yourself up, nobody is coming to pick you up. So Khadija, you gotta pick yourself up and dust yourself off and start moving forward. It doesn't matter whatever the feedback is, we have to go and do something so that we can be able to move forward. This PhD that I'm doing, I'm not doing it for anybody else. That was the first thing that I had to learn myself, because initially in the beginning, it felt like I was doing it for someone else. You know, I had to teach myself that I'm not doing this for anybody else. You know, I'm doing it, you know, for the goal that I see forward, and you know, for myself, and for the vision that I envision to be able to change. Because for anybody who goes to do a PhD, there's something they want to change. There's a mission, you know, they have deep inside them that they want to share with, you know, the world. So that's the approach that I took. But more so in terms of managing those thoughts from the Islamic, you know, perspective, I would say, first of all, for me, the Quran was the epitome actually for managing all those negative thoughts. Because when we look at, you know, the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about him testing us, right? He talks about testing us, and in chapter 29 verse 2, he says, do people think once they say we believe that they will be left alone without being put to the test? So ayahs like that made me realize this is a test for me, and we're all tested in different ways, you know. And you know, for the other person, the test might be different, because you know, there sometimes you get to see there's a lot of judgment in the Muslim community if something is not directly related to doing religious activities. Because this is, you know, this is, yes, it's in terms of the dunya, it is the dunya, but it's also related to the akhirah. Because as Muslims, we need to learn how to be more independent, you know, from all these powers that are, you know, are overtaking us. So if we do not have a strong Muslim ummah that is educated and is pushing for change, and are able to be able to stand in front of, you know, the society and try to bring change, then how are we going to be able to be strong? When I had just started my PhD, I remember there were some people who commented to me and they said, oh, you've chosen the dunya. No, this is part of, part of my akhirah, right? So anyways, for anybody, for any woman out there that has a vision, that is, a strong woman, that is working hard towards, a certain goal, please, please, please do not get discouraged by people and their comments. That's also part of the test. So being able to shake it off and move forward. So as Muslim women, we do encounter a lot of challenges along the way in terms of once we get to a certain level, we do have people within even our own families or our own communities who are fighting us back. So it's part of the test, but we have to be able to be strong and move forward. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us he's not going to leave us alone. We will all be tested. And for everybody, their test is going to be different. For one person, it might be they're being tested in their professional life. For another person, it might be their family life. Maybe it's their marriage, maybe it's their children. Maybe someone is trying to have a child and they're not getting, they're not being blessed with the child yet. Or maybe someone is trying to get married, but they haven't found the spouse yet. Or maybe someone is being tested through their health, or maybe someone is being tested through their wealth, or maybe someone is tested through the poverty. So we all have different tests, but the key thing is we have to realize all this. The life in this dunya is we will face tests, and the tests come together with the blessings, because many times it goes back to the thoughts. Many times we focus so much on the test and we forget that we have blessings in it there. What we focus on is what grows. So when we're so focused on the test and we're worried about the test and we're thinking all the time about the test, when we meet our family and friends, we're always talking about the test. What's going to happen? It's just going to grow and grow and grow, and all it's doing is just consuming us. And sometimes even the test is not really something that we can control or we can be able to, to change at that moment. So we have to take a different approach around that. And the more we talk about the test and we're focused on the test, it's just taking us a low, it takes us down a notch through a low mood. From the low mood we get to the depressive thoughts, and we're just spiraling down and down and down. So what we need to focus on first of all is to be able to think about our activities. When you find yourself in those depressive thoughts of, what's the point? Why should I even do this? It's not going to change anything. Or, when you're waking up in the morning and you're not feeling like you want to get out of bed, remind yourself that you're in this world because Allah chose you to be here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose you to be here. And the test he gave you, he tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah that he doesn't burden a soul beyond what it can bear. So the test he gave you is not something that you cannot bear, okay? So the first thing, when you're feeling like that and you're feeling like you don't want to get out of bed, and sometimes you're just on your phone the whole time, and you're probably sometimes you're looking for solutions, but then being on your phone and being in bed is not going to help you with anything. In fact, it's going to just make you go down that spiral of depression throughout. So the first thing is your physiology. Start moving. Get out of bed and start moving. And this is why the deen of Islam is it's a holistic way of life. That's why we have Salatul Fajr when we wake up in the morning. When we're waking up in the morning, we start with Salatul Fajr. What happens as soon as we say salam, all the problems that we're having has just minimized, right? And once we're feeling our problems has been minimized, we can be able to now move forward and do the rest of the things. And if you can, recite Quran, read your morning adhkar. Your morning adhkar is your protection, your protection throughout the day. So make sure you read your morning adhkar. So being able to have these activities will help with, dealing with the depressive thoughts. Because as soon as you finish doing your morning adhkar, one of the du'as in the morning adhkar is, "Oh Allah, do not leave me by my side even for a blink of an eye." That dua, you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you with all your affairs, even for a blink of an eye. Let him not leave you by yourself. Reading those morning adhkars, and make sure you also learn the meaning of the du'as that you're reading. If when you're reading them in Arabic, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes someone who's consistent, even if they're doing small deeds. So even if the first time you're not able to read all your morning adhkar, then start with the 3 surahs, the 3 quls that you read, and then add about 3 to 5 du'as, and once you have been able to build on that slowly and slowly, what I'll do is I will leave you a link for, there's a good YouTube video that I normally like to listen with in the morning adhkar, that can actually just make it a culture for you, so that you can be able to incorporate that in your morning. I'll leave down the link below so that you can be able to use it as well. Also, I'll leave the link for the Hisnul Muslim app, so that you can be able to have that as well. I've also heard about the app called My Dua app, and from what I've heard, you can be able to favorite the duas that you want in your favorites area kind of thing, and you can be able to go back to it every time you want them. So start with small steps. Once you have a small step that is consistent, then you can be able to build on that. Once you've become consistent on that, then the next thing is to exercise. Exercising really, really helps to manage those negative thoughts. It helps a lot. There's a lot of research out there that talks about how starting your day with exercising really helps to manage your thoughts, change your life. There's so much research out there on the benefits of exercising. Even if you're gonna do 5 to 10 minutes exercise, even if it's not so intensive, it can be a Pilates exercise, or it can be, you can even just if you find yourself waking up late and you don't have time for going to the gym, or doing exercise in the home, then you can just jump. Just stand in front of your mirror and start jumping. Do 5-10 jumps, and you're gonna feel much better, because your dopamine is gonna be triggered, and you will start feeling the feel good hormones. You'll have them, and after that you're gonna feel much better. And even when you look at all the personal development gurus out there, they have a routine before they get started. Look at a book like the 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. If you're a follower of someone like Tony Robbins, he has a ritual in the morning before he gets started. This is just a side note. If you've watched I'm Not Your Guru, they actually show you exactly what he does in the morning, and he goes on a trampoline before he gets onto stage. Why? So that he can be able to get the feel good hormones, and so that he can be able to face the audience. So having your own morning ritual will really help you to manage those negative thoughts and depression, because sometimes you may feel like you're trying your best with things, but things are not happening yet. Also getting to understand everything happens at God's timing, at Allah's timing, not our timing. So, being patient through the process, and, having the beautiful patience. In Surah to Yusuf, Yaqub alayhi salam talks about beautiful patience. So having, that beautiful patience as we move forward, and having patience is not about us. If we're in a situation where we are going through violence, it's not about us sitting there and saying, I'm being patient and I'm accepting to be, to continue going through, the violence. No, it's about us taking our action, but being patient with the process. So if you're in a situation where you're going through violence, you have to speak up. You have to go and seek help. So don't sit there and say, oh, I'm just being patient, or do not accept other people telling you you should have been patient. I've had so many women being told, oh sister, why did you leave, why did you leave your marriage? You should have been patient with being violent. There's no way. That there's no place for that in Islam. There's no place for people being violent on each other, whether it's a man or a woman. Because even, I've heard of cases where, it's a woman who's been violent to her spouse. So we have to draw the line. So any violence or any kind of abuse is completely unacceptable, whether it's, physical abuse or psychological abuse. It's completely unacceptable. And if you're in a situation where you're going through some sort of abuse, please, please, please reach out and find help. There's so much help out there. So reach out and find help. And there's no shame in finding help. It's so much help out there. Reach out. Even if you don't want your family or your close friends to get to know about it, we're here. We can be able to support you. So reach out. Now, in terms of what you can focus on, as I've mentioned earlier, it's about focusing on doing small things and taking the small steps. So don't think that by doing a lot of things in one day and all of a sudden your problems are all solved. It doesn't work like that. It's small steps. Starts with the small steps. As I mentioned earlier, making sure your day starts right. Most importantly, start with your Salatul Fajr. Make sure your Salatul Fajr is prayed on time so that you can be able to get through the rest of the day well. And then the morning adhkar and having your own morning ritual, doing your own kind of exercise that suits your body. If you have any kind of challenges or any health conditions that prevent you from doing very intensive exercises, please seek out advice from your doctor first before you start doing intensive exercises. But just start moving. Even if it's walking, start walking. Even if it's just around the house, like walking around the house like 5-10 times, so that you can be able to get your blood flowing and get those feel good hormones to be released. So that's what I would suggest, that I personally have found has really helped me managing depression. The next thing is having a diary of your daily activities. As I mentioned earlier, it's about being able to identify the problem first. And one of the things is researching. And me being a researcher, I'm a very, very big advocate of researching, right? But for you to be able to understand what the problem is, you need to do some research. So do some research on your life and, write a daily activities diary every day. At the end of the day, write down what have you done like throughout the day. You don't have to write everything, but just having sort of a recall of what you've done throughout the day, that will help you to be able to realize, oh, this is when, and it will actually interrupt those thoughts when they're coming around. So you will be able to realize, oh, this and this time I did this and this, I did this and this, I did this and that. So when you have your diary of daily activities, you're going through them, through all the activities you've done. At the end of the day, you're feeling so much accomplished when you have a lot of things that you've done throughout the day, and you're so proud of yourself. So having that daily activities diary will help you to be able to manage those thoughts and be able to to move away, to manage those thoughts and heal from depression gradually, because this is not an overnight thing. It takes time. You have to do this consistently, so that you can be able to get to see the changes. And anytime you find yourself slipping, do not give up. You move forward and remind yourself, yes, you're human, you've made a mistake, or you've slipped, but do not let the shaitan to continue giving you those those thoughts that you cannot be able to move past the the current mistake or situation that you might have made, because we're all humans, we slip sometimes, but that should not be your your destiny. So don't take residence in that place. So when you go through the activities, then you rate yourself and celebrate your small wins. Don't wait until you've, accomplished a big thing so that you can be able to celebrate yourself. So celebrate those small wins. The fact that you were able to get out of bed and be able to do certain things that you haven't been able to do because of your depression. Give yourself that credit. Tap yourself on the shoulder. Just make sure you celebrate yourself. And then the other thing is to be able to use that, daily routine or daily diary activities to plan ahead. Use it to be able to motivate you so that you can be able to plan ahead and look at, what next you want to do for yourself and, for the people that you're serving. So for example, if you've got, family and children and everything, just remember that, you also need the time for your own self-care. So as much as it's really amazing for us to be giving, we also need time to recharge and to be able to re-energize ourselves. So just put that into context and take advantage of that. The other thing that I would suggest is doing some practical activities in terms of when you find yourself in those thoughts, how to be able to interrupt them. Try using the sensory awareness active exercises. So like, what can you see, what can you hear, what can you feel at that moment? So distract yourself with that, and that way you can be able to distract those thoughts in that manner. Another thing that you can be able to do is to involve yourself in activities, um, you know doing activities that you enjoy, because many times the reason why we find ourselves in that situation is because maybe we've put all our eggs in one basket and we're focusing so much on on the problem and the test and everything, and because of that we are not able to see anything beyond that. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that with hardship comes eases, so they come together. But because we've focused so much on this one thing, what is going to happen is everything is just surrounded around that. So how about we start diversifying our life, and try to find other activities that absorb our attention, that take our attention, that we enjoy, that we can be able to focus on. And that way we're also recharging ourselves, so that when we come back we can be able to look at things from a different lens, and we can be able to come back re-energized, and be able to come back with a different perspective. Because sometimes when you step away from the problem and you're able to look to step away for some time, you come back, and you can handle it better. um, that's what I've learned personally. Like, when you focus so much on something and it's not, you're feeling it's not working out at that moment, just step away, go for a walk, or go and make dinner for your family, or whatever. Just do some other activity that is completely unrelated to it. What's going to happen when you come back? You're going to come back with a fresh mind to it. So that likewise, find activities that you enjoy, and you can be able to come back re-energized and ready to face life. Right. The other thing, as I mentioned earlier, is about finding solace in the Quran. And as I mentioned earlier, my favorite surah is Surah to Yusuf, because it's got loads of lessons for us so far. From what I've learned so far, it's got about 40 lessons for us. But I'm going to focus on the main ones that are related to this topic, because all the lessons are relevant to us. But what I normally say is the Quran is a toolbox for us. And sometimes there's certain surahs that work with the situation we're in our lives at that moment. So if you're feeling you're depressed and you're feeling you're so low, your mood is so low, surahs like Surah to Yusuf, Surah to Ar-Rahman, all those surahs really help to be able to bring back that positive mindset and optimism in your life. This surah was actually it was actually revealed that after, you know, after that year that is known as the year of sorrow, when Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had lost Khadija, he had lost his uncle. So all his external support, he lost all his external support. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just gets to show us, and this applies to us as well, that even the prophets, they endured a lot, you know, before, you know, the prophets before us endured a lot. So if they were tested, who are we not to be tested? So finding that solace in, you know, in revelation will really help to be able to change the perspective, and also, you know, getting to see that sometimes things fall apart for the best. You know, looking at this surah, when Yusuf alayhi salam was thrown in the well, you know, the brothers came back telling Yaqub that he was eaten by a wolf. You know, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Yusuf in an ayah there in the surah, when he was thrown in the well, and at that time Yusuf could not like see beyond his situation. And many of us find ourselves in that situation where everything is falling apart and we're wondering what's going on and how are we going to get out of this and all this and that, on all this and that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Yusuf in verse 15 that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remind them of this deed of theirs while they were unaware of. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was trying to show is there will come a time when these people who've thrown you in the well, they will not recognize who you are, right? And they will be reminded of, you know, what they did to you, but because you're such a different person now, they wouldn't know that they had done that to you. And likewise, this is, you know, this is our lesson as well. If we find ourselves in a situation where we've been abandoned by, you know, by someone, or, you know, something that we were hoping to go the way we wanted did not go, so we just have to find that solace in knowing that there's always light that comes after that darkness. So if we're going through a dark moment right now, that's not the end, you know, the end of our experience of life. It's just a page, not even a chapter. It's just a page of our life. So there's so much to this book called our life. So this is not, you know, that's little dark situation should not taint your view to get to see that everything else that comes after that is just going to be darkness and sadness. No, after every, you know, hardship, there's always a beautiful thing that comes out of it. You know, there's always, after the darkness, there's always light. You know, looking at, for example, the process by which the pearl is normally formed, it goes through a lot of pressure, so that that pearl comes to, you know, comes to life. Likewise, even with us, that when we spend time to get to understand and get to look at things from a different perspective, we can be able to actually get a lot of lessons and wisdom from the darkness, so that we can, you know, once we've gone through, you know, our phase, not, you know, not when we're in there, because obviously when we're in there we need the support, but once we've come out on the other side and we've come out stronger, we can actually be able to support other people that are in that situation, to be able to get out of their own situation, which takes me to the next point, which is, you know, the support systems that we get to have. I have this saying of, you know, there's nothing as beautiful as the power of me too. You know, when you get to hear people who have had similar experiences as yourself, you know, and whatever experience you're going through, you know, you're not alone in it, and, you know, you're not crazy to be having those, you know, those kind of thoughts that you've been having. So getting to, you know, getting us, you know, a support system whereby you're feeling encouraged and people telling you, yes, you know, it's normal to have these thoughts, but this is how you can work through it. Again, it's not like having a support system whereby everybody is just complaining about the situation, and, you know, you're going like, you know, it's now become, you know, like sort of a complaining place kind of thing. No, it's a place whereby people are feeling more encouraged and empowered through, you know, through sharing their stories and how they were able to overcome the struggles, because we all have our own struggles. You know, someone once told me we all have our demons, and it's true, we all have our demons that we're all struggling with. So sharing your experiences really helps to get to know You're not the only one going through that experience. You're not the only one, going through, the pain that you're going through. And just having that one page of your life does not mean everything else is gonna remain that way, and things are gonna just get worse and worse and worse. No, it gets better. But getting better as well means you have to change your perspective, because remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He doesn't change our situations, and we change what's within ourselves. So we have to change what's within ourselves, and our thoughts is the greatest thing that we can change for ourselves so that we can be able to move forward. So yeah, and looking at other ways of so alternative ways of solving a problem. So if we have a problem and the way we've been trying to solve it the whole time is not working out, we need to to be open to other ways to be able to address the problem rather than being fixated. Also, by clarifying our goals and values, and how we spend our time, it will really help us to get to understand what is it that I need to really change in my life that is causing me the depression that I'm going through. So for example, if you're in a job whereby you don't feel it aligns with your values, and you're not feeling it's adding the kind of value that you were hoping it to add to, because sometimes you may be in a job and your aim is just to ensure that you can be able to to have your bills being paid, and you're living a stable life so that you can be able to actually do the things that you're supposed to do, so you can be able to focus on what you're supposed to focus on. So there's no way you can be able to focus on your mission in life when you have your bills are not being paid, when you don't have food and all these things, so your basic needs are not being met. So if you're in a situation whereby you're feeling, okay, this current job is not really supporting me in what I want, I enjoy doing, and it's having a trickle effect on all the other areas of my life. For example, I'll give you an example here is, for example, if let's say you're someone who works in a hospital, and maybe you're doing cleaning at the hospital, but every time you're doing your cleaning is when everybody else is out of the way, or people are not there, and sometimes people can be real rude to you. So that just takes you down a notch, but yet you want a job that you want to engage with other people, so maybe changing that will help you to be able to get to engaging with other people. So, and if that's having a trickle effect with the way you're treating your children, you're treating your spouse, or you're treating your other family members, or your friends, or the people you live with, so it's just about clarifying what matters to us, and our values and our goals, and how we're spending our time, because our time is the most important asset that we have, and this will be something we can discuss in another episode. So having some sort of alignment towards what you really value and what you do will really help you to be able to manage those depressive thoughts. As I mentioned earlier, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Have several parts of your life with different activities. It's not all play, all work and all work and no play, or all play and no work. So having a balance between the two, doing things that you enjoy in a halal way, and spending time now, alhamdulillah, the weather is much better and nice, so spending a lot of time in nature can be able to help to just to help with the healing. And if you haven't listened yet to the episode that we talked about the healing effects of being in nature, I'll put a link down below so that you can be able to listen to that as well. So yeah, have different things going on in your life, so that you're not focusing on just one thing, and have the different things, things that you do socially, with your family or friends, or your community, but also have things that you do on your own, like solitary, that you enjoy to do by yourself, kind of things that you can be able to re-energize and recharge yourself, and do the self-care for yourself that you need. So I hope that this episode has been enlightening for you. And if you're struggling with with depression and anxiety, again, please reach out, come to us, and we can be able to support you through this process, because we know how it feels. Just know you're not alone. We're all humans, we're all going through a journey, and we're all going through a journey, and sometimes we're going through a bump, sometimes it might be a dark tunnel, but at the end of the day, just remember, just like the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, there's always something beautiful that comes out of a dark situation. Look at Yusuf alayhi salam. He was, he went through so much. He was thrown into the well, and then when he was thrown into the well, he was picked up, he was sold for a certain amount of money, and he was taken to Egypt. Then he had the wife of Aziz, trying to, because he was so handsome, trying to to commit adultery with him, and then he ended up going into prison, because he felt being in prison was safer for him rather than being in the house of the Aziz. And then he narrated a dream for someone who was with him in prison, but this person had completely forgotten about him, and they remembered him later on when the king wanted someone to interpret a dream for him, and that was how he was able to get his victory. So we may be going through a lot of things in our lives, and sometimes things just fall apart, and we are wondering what's going on, and sometimes we may question things, but let's never ever question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he knows what he's doing for us, and everything works out for the best in the end. Because when you look at the surah of Yusuf alayhi salam, it gets to show us that everything worked out for the best, and he wouldn't have become the leader of Egypt if it wasn't for all the things that he went through. So there's always wisdom in everything that we go through. Likewise, our lives as well, there's always wisdom. So wherever we are at, we wouldn't have been able to get at without all the hardships that we went through. And whatever hardship that we will face ahead, just know there's a purpose for everything. All right, that's it for today's episode. I hope you've been able to get some powerful gems, inshallah, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.